and over the moon.
Welcome to the Landing Strip with Nick Lynham and Mikey Garcia, presented by From Financial.
Even call that free agent frenzy this year? We didn't even have live coverage from the big stations past 1:30 p.m. yesterday, and I honestly can't say I blame them. Like,
right?
Who was there to get excited about in free agency? But the Winnipeg Jets made some maneuvers. We have a better idea where they are coming out of it, and we're gonna get into all of that today in what is potentially no audio. Potentially audio. Okay, can you guys hear me? Let's see, the chat's going off here. No sound.
Give us a thumbs up if you can hear us, everybody.
Muted. Okay, we're good. Okay, thank you, folks. It is potentially our last show of the year. We got to have some more problems with the tech. We're gonna get that all sorted out. Yeah, we're gonna get that all sorted out over the break here. But let's go for one last ride. Let's get into the Winnipeg Jets summer here as they made some additions, and we have a better idea of where the Winnipeg Jets now stand. Mikey, how are you doing today on this July 2nd, 2026?
Nothing's ever more bittersweet than, doing the last show of the season. We've got a crazy ride that we've gone on this year after the big high of the President's Trophy winning team and the start of a new era to, the tank commander looking to see who we're going to be drafting. The drama around the draft. Is Hellebuyck going, not going, culminating in still somehow with Vigo Mania coming into town. So I'm excited to kind of, put a cap on all of it. Excited to turn the page on a new season, and excited to see where the Jets are going to go, because there's still a lot to go on this summer. There's
at least one big thing left to go as we await for the Connor Hellebuyck trade. And let's start there, because the Winnipeg Jets get themselves some goalie insurance in the name of Stuart Skinner. And I know that has been your guy. You were hoping to get from free agency with the idea in mind that Connor Hellebuyck would be leaving. Let's start with you, Mikey. You've been pounding the Stu Skinner drum. What'd you think when you saw the Winnipeg Jets had signed Stuart Skinner to start their free agency just yesterday?
As soon as we started talking about the possibility of Connor Hellebuyck no longer being a Winnipeg Jet, and when that intensified after the end of the season there, Skinner was it screamed Winnipeg Jets signing, opportunity for him to, play a shitload of games in a system that I'm sure that he's going to, we're going to see some skinema, as the Jets put it out, right? It's going to be maybe Skinamax some nights, but it's going to be entertaining. And I just want to say, he got signed, 2-year, 3.7, right? I want to say I had him in at 2 years, 3.657. Published on my Puckpedia GM for everybody to see. So there's no revisionist history. There's no looking back here. I told you that was going to happen. So once again, you can be surprised or listen to the landing strip. We hit it off.
I got to say, I was thrilled, actually. Maybe that's going to be a surprise, as I see our friend Norm7298 is not thrilled with the Skinner signing. With in the comment section, Skinner, F my life. I'm happy with where that went. When you look at Stuart Skinner, obviously with the playoffs in Edmonton, we're a lot more familiar with the blow-ups around the McDavid window. We're familiar with the bad times. But Stuart Skinner was also a real rock for that Edmonton team, bouncing back from some of those lows. And I'll say this, leaving the Connor Hellebuyck era, which I do think this signing is another point towards that is coming, and we'll touch on that. You're going to be taking bets on some really flawed goaltenders. There's 4 or 5 guys in the entire NHL that you could routinely bet on, like a Connor Hellebuyck. Stuart Skinner, still only 27 years old. And when you have, Flaherty here, and what he's really done with the goaltenders that have come through Winnipeg, obviously Connor Hellebuyck's a 1 of 1, but Laurent Brossoit was looking for a new lease on life in his world of goaltending in the NHL in his career. That was a bit of a last shot for him. he turns it around, gets a $4 million deal out of Chicago after coming to back up in the Winnipeg Jets. Eric Comrie has gotten multiple contracts now, coming back to Winnipeg, showing that he can still be an NHL goaltender, and then going out and getting multiple years from Buffalo and then now San Jose. And then David Rittich was another guy that looked like he was done in the NHL, comes to Winnipeg, works with Flaherty, ends up securing another multi-year deal with, I believe it was Los Angeles after that year, if I remember correctly.
You got it.
So I'll say this, when it comes to Stuart Skinner, this is by far not a perfect goaltender, and his lows have been historically really low, but his highs have also been a top 10, top 15 goaltender in this league. And when you're talking about a 27-year-old on a 2-year deal at $3.75 million, I think this is a really good and really smart piece of business in the economy of the NHL. A really smart bet where there's two tracks this can go. I'm not going to say Stuart Skinner is for sure going to be the answer, right? That's not what I'm here to sell you. I think he has had some real highs, especially on those playoff runs. Like Stuart Skinner would lose his job early in those playoffs and then be one of the biggest reasons that team did go to the finals when he was able to get back into the crease. He has really bounced back from the down periods very well, but he's also does have the talent. Like his highs have flirted with being a potential top 10 goaltender. So if I trust Wade Flaherty and his work with some guys that were really just backups looking to stick around, I'm going to trust him here with Stuart Skinner. And I'll say this, if Stuart Skinner does blow up, and we know the big story around Stuart Skinner hasn't been his physical tools, it's been more of the mental side. Stuart Skinner has historically really battled with his own confidence levels and getting into his own head. This is a real, I know it rubs people the wrong way, and you've gone to bat with goaltenders being different and needing to sell themselves on the Connor Hellebuyck stuff.
Yep.
You're going to see the exact opposite approach when it comes to Stuart Skinner. This is someone that's very accountable, that really wears the tough days on his back and really tries to bounce back. I think it's a good personality bet. I think from a talent level for a goaltender, it's a good bet. And hey, if it blows up, and we've seen what it looks like with Stuart Skinner when it blows up, that won't be bad for my motivations in the 2027 lottery draft, potentially, if it goes that direction. I think this is the type of win-win bet where the Jets are trying to stabilize themselves and still compete, and they gave themselves a chance at a real top 15 goaltender in a league. Goaltending, you're throwing darts. I like the bet. I like the price. We'll see where it goes. With Stuart Skinner signing in Winnipeg, did you read into that any bit more on where the Connor Hellebuyck conversation might go?
You know, we talked a lot last year about how the Jets are the Rorschach test of the National Hockey League, right? You can see what you want to see really easily, just by looking at them. The Skinner signing feels a lot like that, where if you're hoping that it's going to be an absolute, dumpster fire again next year because you want to be dreaming about DuPont, then you can look at Stuart Skinner and go, oh, yeah, that's going to be my guy. If you're thinking the Jets are going to be a wild card team chasing down that last spot, hoping to get hot at the right time, you might also think, yeah, Stuart Skinner's going to be my guy. And same thing when it comes to, maybe the bigger picture. Do you think Stuart Skinner's coming here to play, back up to Connor Hellebuyck's, 50-plus starts, locked and loaded, ready to go? I don't really think so. I kind of doubt that. But hey, maybe you're telling yourself Connor Hellebuyck needs more rest and they're only going to play him, half the games, and Skinner's going to there's going to be a true 50-50, 1A, 1B. I don't see it happening that way, but you could maybe sell yourself that. The way I see it playing out is this is the signing because you're not going to have Connor Hellebuyck in a Winnipeg Jets uniform next season. I still think that trade is coming. I still think it's been too public, too loud. That relationship is not repairable. He doesn't see this still as a winner. Again, you swapping out Eric Comrie for Stuart Skinner doesn't fix Connor Hellebuyck feeling like the play in front of him was completely subpar, doesn't fix all the tip-in goals, doesn't fix all of the things that he was mad about last season. So to me, this absolutely signals that they are going to move Connor Hellebuyck before the season starts.
So I'm going to present the opposite case because I see over on YouTube, Vega Bondman is presenting the opposite side of what he believes the Jets just pulled off. And then I'll get into my take here. Vega Bondman said, I'm going to go the opposite. I truly think what they're doing so far is a way to entice and secure the goaltending on out. They learned they cannot count on Comrie to take the reins. Skinner is better than Eric Comrie. Also, with the signing of Ferraro, guess what was one of Connor Hellebuyck's complaints? Redirected shots. They got a shot blocking machine in Mario Ferraro. I truly do think that their goal for Skinner was to back up, and Mario Ferraro was to address Connor Hellebuyck concerns. Let's get into that, as that is the counter argument. As soon as I saw Stuart Skinner sign, that to me was a further indication of where this is going, in my opinion. I don't think Stuart Skinner's signing 2 years, $3.75 million, which is really a bridge contract for him to kind of earn a longer-term deal if he can kind of grab the reins at his age. And we know how much opportunity matters for goaltending. I saw that as insurance for the Winnipeg Jets to continue navigating the Connor Hellebuyck trade waters, and great insurance on that. When it comes to Connor Hellebuyck, I think Mario Ferraro is the type of add to what they're looking for. But if I'm being honest, if I look at what the Jets have done through the draft, through free agency, I don't think Connor Hellebuyck's looking at this team and saying, you know what? They solved it. The Winnipeg Jets could win now. I don't see that here. I don't look at this roster being like, oh, you know what? Winnipeg Jets had an awesome summer. They're back and they're ready to win. I don't think Connor Hellebuyck's going to see Stuart Skinner and Mario Ferraro as that type of summer, if I'm being frank. And then another detail that really caught my attention here is the fact that Connor Hellebuyck and Stuart Skinner share an agent tells me that Stuart Skinner would have had some insight into what his path to the crease is going to look like. Like, I don't think Ray Petkow is necessarily guiding Stuart Skinner to the Winnipeg Jets for an opportunity at 27 years old where he can earn his next contract if they don't have a good indication that that type of opportunity is going to be available. I think the Winnipeg Jets had a good couple days here in giving themselves some more options and giving themselves a higher ceiling, I think is how I would describe this summer so far. Like, I do think there's, for how I see the org, I really like this summer so far, and maybe that won't be what some people want to hear, but we'll describe all of that in depth as we go. I just don't look at them signing Stuart Skinner and how they've approached backup goaltenders. We know if Connor Hellebuyck is in town, he's going to play 60-plus games. Yeah. We've seen that every single year, and we've consistently seen the Winnipeg Jets spend less on backup goaltending for that reason. When I see the Stuart Skinner price, which I think is a great one in the salary cap environment, that screams to me a 1A, 1B type of setup. And I think we'll be seeing another NHL goaltender coming into Winnipeg at some point this summer. I'll be personally surprised if it's a Connor Hellebuyck, Stuart Skinner, 1-2 in Winnipeg. I don't think that's what's going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. If the Jets knew that or even felt comfortable or confident that Hellebuyck was going to be staying, you would have seen Eric Comrie sign that deal here in Winnipeg. They just would have brought Comrie back. They would have been fine running that tandem out there because Hellebuyck's going to play his, 60-ish games, barring injury, and Comrie will, do mop-up duty from there. The fact that they were fine with letting Comrie move on to San Jose, the fact that they went out and spent the money they did on Stuart Skinner, the fact that Skinner decided to come here, right? He's not going to come to play 12 games, 15 games. Like, that's just not what he's going to do when he's trying to get to his next big contract, the one that's going to get him paid. So absolutely think that it's, those are the signs that I feel like that's what the Jets are leaning. Because, otherwise I think you would have seen Eric Comrie re-signed here in Winnipeg.
And we'll get into it, but I got to say, I think we're at the point where if the Winnipeg Jets want to solidify themselves as a playoff team, they might need to make the Connor Hellebuyck trade, but we'll get into that in the wrap-up towards the end. I just look at Stuart Skinner. I think it's a quality bet, quality price, quality age group, and working under Flaherty, I think could really help there. I just don't believe Stuart Skinner was signed here to play 20 to 25 games for the next 2 years behind Connor Hellebuyck. I think this was a great job by the Winnipeg Jets getting who was your favorite target for goaltenders in here and allowing them to really navigate what this Connor Hellebuyck trade could look like. That's what I took out of all this. That's what I believe still coming. Could be wrong, and our friend over in the chat, Vega Bondman, could be right on their theory. I just don't buy it at this moment in time, and I think it actually made the Connor Hellebuyck stuff more likely before camp. I still don't believe he will play another game in Winnipeg, personally.
Yeah, I think it still makes it more likely. And the Jets have been telling us, through their various conduits, that they still, plan on competing. They still are, Connor Hellebuyck trade or not, they're still going to want to look to make the playoffs and get in. And, the Stuart Skinner signing, say that 5 times fast, really does give you that cover, right? They can say that this is still a starting goaltender. This is a guy that we believe in and, can play a starter's role in all of that. So, yeah, it really, it covers your tracks right across the board, I think.
Frosty says, Nick is the first person I've heard to say he likes the summer, which is bonkers considering the Bombers and the weather. Hey, Nick is always someone that's taking a bit of a different angle, I feel, on a lot of different things. And we'll get into why as we get into our conclusions on the summer. Why Nick likes the summer, because I don't think it's going to be the type of reason that most people would want to like a summer. There's a different angle to this, I think, than what you're expecting to hear, Frosty, but we'll get there.
We'll see.
That takes us to the signing number 2 on the day. It was the Noah Gregor signing. To me, looks like a depth signing for the Moose, 100%. Given how that was set up. Other than saying that, did you think much of the Noah Gregor forward depth signing, or is that just a Moose piece here?
I think it's a Moose piece to replace Mason Shaw, essentially, who left to go back to Minnesota. So I think that's really what it comes down to for that one.
Hey, at the end of the day, we have one Cole Koepke, and now we have 2. You want a guy that could just skate fast and give you an honest effort and not really chip in? Noah Gregor is your guy. So now we have 2 Cole Koepkes.
2 postseason games for the Leafs in 2024. So he's ready.
For sure. The notable move that has people talking is the Winnipeg Jets finally get their man, in a sense. We've been hearing them linked to Mario Ferraro for a couple of years here. Played top 4 minutes on that San Jose team in the midst of their rebuild. He's going to come into town and be the third lefty behind Dylan Sandberg and Josh Morrissey. 3 years, $4 million, a 10-team no-trade clause throughout it. What'd you think when you saw the price and the acquisition of Mario Ferraro? As the day went on, I was getting a little concerned, actually, because we knew going in they were going to be looking for a D with some size that fills this role that Vega Bondman's talking about on the idea of blocking shots with the Hellebuyck stuff, the idea of getting some meat on the back end. And when I saw Vinny Desharnais go off the board, and who was the other one? Alexiak. I was like, oh, God, we're getting Carson Soucy or Logan Stanley, aren't we?
Yep.
And this was a nice little surprise for me when I was thinking about Carson Soucy and Logan Stanley comparatively. What'd you think of the Mario Ferraro deal and where he fits into this Winnipeg Jets blue line?
If you're a fan of the landing strip, you're no stranger to Mario Ferraro. We've kind of talked about not only their connection to him, but the things that he does that the Jets value. Even if Connor Hellebuyck doesn't come back next season, the Jets still have a problem of a lot of tipped goals, a lot of screened shots, that is still going to be an issue for whoever is in net, right? So the Jets, you would hope, would go out and identify that and try to find a solution. And Mario Ferraro seems to be the first step in that, because he's going to eat up a lot of those opportunities. He's going to play those minutes, and you're going to get that quality of block shots. I'm fine with the price. I like the term. I like the bet. This is a player that I think we're pretty pro just overall. So, yeah, that's a nice piece of work. That's a nice one by the Jets. I have no complaints on this signing or that contract.
Yeah, this is one of those where I see the chat's just happy it isn't Stan, and I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah. But this is one of those where I think the Winnipeg Jets, and we have this debate that goes back and forth on the patience. Is patience a good thing for the Winnipeg Jets to operate under? This is one of those times I think patience worked out really well for the Winnipeg Jets. Mario Ferraro was asking a lot more money out of San Jose to sign there. And he seems like one of those D that the market kind of collapsed as the day went on. And I think there was a lot of those D that saw that. I didn't mind the Vincent Desharnais contract. Logan Stanley was coming in looking at 5x5. I don't think he's getting that now with where this market's gone. Mario Ferraro gets a 3x4. I think that segment of the market really collapsed as the day went on yesterday. And I think the Winnipeg Jets did a really good job to get a 27-year-old Mario Ferraro on that number in this economy of the NHL. I think it's a great buy. I think it's a great value add. And the big thing we always talk about with July 1st, one of the things we haven't been upset with when the Jets don't participate on July 1st is a lot of silly money tends to get handed to players like this, and then you're kind of handcuffing yourself. I think the Winnipeg Jets did really well on both Stuart Skinner and Mario Ferraro to keep the valuation, the AAV, the term at a level where it's a quality bet for that player and what they might mean to the Jets in the short term on the life of those deals. But I also think it's great value for where I think this ultimately is going during the length of those videos to trade the player for positive value. Like, that's one of the things that happens with free agency, right? Is you're overspending, you're getting stuck on a bad deal, then you can't get out of it. I actually really like where the Jets have come out of free agency on the Skinner AAV and on the Mario Ferraro AAV, where if this continues to go backwards, they have value there and real assets to then parlay into futures. So I like the Ferraro bet. I think he was kind of miscast as a top 4 D-man in San Jose, and that's kind of what happens when you're in the midst of a rebuild, right? You have guys playing above their typical station. As a third pairing defenseman, I think Mario Ferraro's a great fit. And as far as the decor goes entirely, you're looking at something like, when healthy, Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk, Ferraro, Salo, with Fleury and St. Ivany being the 7-8 guys. I think that's a noticeable step forward from what we were seeing last year. Let's even call St. Ivany, who's a 7 or 8, and a younger upgrade of the same type of player Luke Shen is, and that's not a guy that's in the lineup every day. Mario Ferraro, a huge step ahead of guys like Hayden Fleury and Logan Stanley, who we saw play a ton of minutes. I think the Winnipeg Jets did a really good job of solidifying the fact that when they are healthy, they have 6 NHL regular, everyday style defensemen. Now, I think when you look at trying to compete for a cup, they are still an impact top 3 right-handed D away from that level of decor. But if you were to tell me right now that the decor they put together yesterday slots in the top 10 to 15 of the NHL next year, I think that's more than doable for what they've compiled from an asset level here.
Yeah, if you're looking at it on paper, right? You've got a fully healthy start of the season type of thing. Yeah, I would maybe still want to see. Hopefully, they're going to have it. Morrissey, Salo up on that top pairing together. Then you got your Sandberg, Pionk, and then your Ferraro, DeMello bottom pairing. Feels like it could be something real nice for the Jets to roll out there. The question's going to be, is that going to be the 6, right? Does Hayden Fleury take the spot from Ferraro because the coaches trust him more? Is this going to be a Colin Miller situation where Ferraro's riding the pine every game and we're staring at the lineup going, what are we doing? But yeah, if those are your 6 that are on the ice, I don't hate that whatsoever.
As Choices said, players like Ferraro, it's hard to tell what they truly are because San Jose was bad for so long during his come up.
Yep.
And then Vega Bondman asks about one more defenseman, saying Bauer ? And I'll just say, if Bauer is up and playing NHL games next year, something has gone seriously wrong, and we will be in the DuPont stakes that I want to be in. So if Tyrell Bauer wants to make his way up, I'm okay with that because that likely means there will be a goodie at the end of the year. I don't see Tyrell Bauer ever actually being a real discussion when it comes to the Winnipeg Jets outside of the idea he's put together quite the pro career of making people happy on his way to developing CTE. I just don't see him as a NHL option at any point in his career here.
No, but if you're a fan, it's great. The Moose tickets are less expensive than the Jets ones. You can, grab a few of those, go check him out. And it's, he'll definitely kick somebody's ass because he's awesome at it. But yeah, I agree. I don't think he's an option for the Jets if they are still serious about trying to get into one of those last 2 playoff spots, which it does feel like that is still the goal for them internally.
They also did get a depth D-man today, Henry Thrun, another guy that poured through San Jose and then Toronto last year. he's going to fit in as probably their number 9 behind the 8 we mentioned as like the first call-up idea. Garrett Brown will probably impact into those if his first full year in the A goes well as well.
Yep.
So when you look at the D-core from a 1 to 10 perspective and their options, I do think they truly did raise their floor defensively, and I do think they've given themselves some more options. As Infinity Comment points out, I want to see Ferraro with Pionk in the preseason. Would love to see something like that if that means Salo's playing with Sandberg after what we saw, or Salo's playing with DeMello. I think when you look at the Jets D-core, what Ferraro really does allow them to do that a Logan Stanley, a Hayden Fleury couldn't, is have a stable option on that third pair that you can maneuver the right side options through differently than what we've seen. Now, is that in Scott Arniel's bread and butter as a coach? Probably not, but I do think the way this D-core has set up has given the coaching staff some real options to try some different pathways where you're probably going to be comfortable when healthy with all 3 pairs.
Yep. Oh God, I'm gonna say words right now that I wish weren't going to be recorded on audio.
Then don't do it.
I'm gonna do it though. I'm gonna defend Scott Arniel for 1 second. He did at certain points realize that Logan Stanley and Luke Shen were bad at things and would sit them late in the games, right? They would kind of get their butts parked for the entire third period, sometimes longer. So if you're not having to do that now in games where you're trying to, chase or hold on to a tie or whatever it is, then perhaps you have the opportunity finally to reduce those Neil Pionk defensive minutes, right? Keep them out there for the power play, get them some offensive zone starts whenever you need to, but maybe we can finally keep the Pionk minutes on the defensive side down a little bit. If they're looking to get those spots, different story if we're trying in the DuPont sweepstakes, but just from a pure like on ice wins standpoint, that might give them that opportunity with Ferraro.
Frosty says, I'm recording this, Mikey.
So am I. My own demise.
I'll say this as I see Turd goes there with the We Need DuPont. We're going to Bjork our way to land in a Stanley Cup parade. Don't you worry. That's the phrase I'm going with at this point in time, though I do think they raised their floor to a level where that is becoming less likely based on their offseason. That being said, do you think their offseason, as far as signings goes, is done from here? They got the 3 left D. They got the goalie insurance. Maybe it's a 1B behind Connor Hellebuyck, probably a 1A, 1B guy behind Skinner like we talked about. Do you see anywhere else on this roster that could potentially be improved, whether it be through the Connor Hellebuyck trade or still via free agency? As I think there's 3 options still in free agency that actually intrigue me for where the Jets find themselves and what they are looking for.
Ooh, before we hit there, who are your 3 that you're intrigued by? I'm curious.
So the one thing they haven't addressed yet is the clear need to put the pucks in the net. There has been no shooting talent upgrades in Winnipeg throughout this summer quite yet. Though I'll say this, Viggo Bjork's release in tight is a lot more exciting in person than I was ready for. So maybe there is some scoring there right off the bat. But I see 3 names that have made it through to this point of day 2 in free agency that I'm really curious about fitting into Winnipeg and what they're looking for, both on the power play and beside a Cole Perfetti. And those names being Eli Tolvanen, makes a ton of sense to me. What's his name? Anthony Mantha, makes a ton of sense to me. And if you wanted to go the incentive-laden route, and make a certain segment of this fan base really excited, Patrick Laine stands out to me as 3 guys that are all flawed in their own right and in their own way, but would bring that scoring talent that is missing. What do you think of those 3 options, and do you think any of them, I guess, make sense before we get to the Connor Hellebuyck of it all?
So we'll start with the Patrick Laine portion of it, because if anybody knows, I'm nostalgic as fuck. I love a good redemption story. There's nothing wrong, I think, in my opinion, of bringing in Patrick Laine on a very heavy incentive laden contract to see if he wants to come hang out. And look, he hung out with the Habs all last season, didn't really play much, and it's great to have him around at practice. So if that's a potential out there, I'd bring Patty home. I absolutely would. Again, I think the Jets next year should be closer to the DuPont sweepstakes than they are, getting into they should be trying to win playoff games. So that's, I think the nostalgia for me hits there. Tolvanen, he was always an intriguing one, especially looking back. I remember at that draft, thinking real hard about that pick. So that would be something that would be interesting from like you said, just a pure shooting talent standpoint. And Mantha, that's maybe not, I don't know. Mantha's one I'd have to really think about. I don't know if I want to start going down that road yet. Honestly, I don't think the free agent route is one they're going to be going down whatsoever now. I think they grabbed the guys that they targeted. I think it's going to be the Connor Hellebuck of it all to kind of move things around. I think the Bjork pick really changed what they were looking for, both in free agency and maybe in the trade aspect of it. So that is going to play a big part of it here with Viggo Bjork. So yeah, I think that they still want a scoring winger. I think that's a fairly obvious hole. We've heard Darren Dreger mention it a few times, so we know that's coming right from the team. So that's going to be, I think, a big part of maybe what the Hellebuck return is. But in terms of free agency, I think they are probably done.
So, as Raw points out over on YouTube, we still need top 6 quality forwards. No one outside of CSV has scored 20 goals or 60 points the last 3 years, and that is the big glaring weakness still staring at this roster. I'm going to be the guy that goes the opposite way and say of those 3 options, Patrick Laine would be 3 out of 3 for me. I don't see it. I think it's a nostalgic play. It's basically the Jonathan Toews play for a different segment of the fan base, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
It is totally nostalgic. It is totally the one that is most likely to blow up and not get you what you're looking for. And I would not be betting on Patrick Laine at this point in time. We are talking about living on years and years ago, and he is by far the biggest risk there. If it happened, and like at the end of the day, it depends what you want out of next year. If you're trying to win, I don't think Patrick Laine is the answer. If you're just trying to sell tickets and get people excited during another bad year, hey, you could sell me on Patrick Laine coming back, but I don't think that is the answer. Personally, for me, I would be looking at Anthony Mantha. I think he makes the most sense. He's going to score you 20 to 30 goals. I don't think he gets to the 30 number of last year.
He still has a 20 in him?
He just put up 33 last year, brother.
I know. I worry. I just don't know if it's there.
And you think it's there with Patrick fucking Laine?
Oh, no.
Sorry for my language.
Absolutely not. But
Anthony Mantha, of the 3, like at this point of free agency, you're talking about flawed options. You're talking about flawed options. I look at Patrick Laine as the most flawed of it. It's a total crap. It's 100%. It's a crapshoot in the same way that Jonathan Toews is. Anthony Mantha has at least still played in the NHL and consistently scored goals in this league. His biggest critique is for his size as a big man, he doesn't play at his size. He is not a big physical guy, and that's what coaching staffs want from him. And typically speaking, they get tired of his work effort, and he ends up in the press box come playoffs. But for a team that is looking for goal-scoring talent, I do think Anthony Mantha is a really intriguing option for the middle 6 for what the Jets need in shooting talent. Again, they are still missing a driver too, and none of these options will have the play driving in it. And then Eli Tolvanen, I think there's a bit there where you can get 15 to 20 goals out of him playing in Winnipeg. But again, you are going to be shy top 6 caliber forwards, as Raw had pointed out. Like that is the big problem with this roster makeup at this point. And those were just a couple free agent options that I could see like relatively raising that floor a little bit more when it comes to finding goals.
Yep, absolutely. If you're trying to get those goals, if you're trying to get those sneak in wins, it's a good route to go for sure.
As for that, let's get into the Connor Hellebuck situation. Official predictions there, which you would be targeting at this point, given where their offseason's gone. We talked a little bit about it at the beginning. Let's go to Connor Hellebuck, and then let's get into where we think this team is at this moment in time. Do you think Connor Hellebuck gets traded? And if it's via trade, what do you think that trade kind of looks like at this part? It could be a team you're looking at. It could be a certain asset you're looking at. What do you think happens moving forward into the summer around Connor Hellebuck and this roster?
So I think, yeah, obviously the landscape has changed right around the Connor Hellebuck situation. We've talked about the stuff with Buffalo. We've talked about, the ideas with Florida in the past and all of that. I think now where we are, the fact that they've signed Skinner, the fact that they were able to get Bjork without having to change their position at the draft, I think that opens them up to getting a slightly different, I don't know if it's going to be better, but a slightly different type of return than what the initial ask was going to be, which is why I think this is taking longer than it has. I think the Jets have maybe recalculated a little bit on what that return can include. I'm just real kind of lost on where it's going to come from right now. The spots that seem to be most likely maybe don't have the best return available, the New Jerseys of it all and that type of place. Now that we're hearing that Carolina seems to have moved on, now that
they might not have.
They keep circling back, right? So that still could be in play, but even there, I know you're not crazy about what a Carolina return is going to include. I still hope and pray that a Carolina return could include Seth Jarvis in some way, shape, or form, but that might just be on the hopium. But yeah, the New Jersey Devils have still always been always the bridesmaid and never the bride when we're talking about a Connor Hellebuck trade going back to before his last contract. Their name never seems to completely go away, so I still wonder if Meta wants to make his big splash there. And if Buffalo finally does get over the line, right? That's the other spot. So I think we all know Buffalo gives you the best return potentially with an NHL player, both in the right now and the long term. But I can't shake this feeling of Connor Hellebuck in that Carolina Hurricanes jersey, and maybe there's a way that a hometown kid comes home in the return. That's my dream. That's my dream return right there.
That would be fun. Did you see it? And we'll get into the Buffalo thing. Did you see that the original ask out of Winnipeg for Buffalo for Connor Hellebuck was Zach Benson?
Yeah.
Chevy might be listening to the old landing strip this summer with some of these ideas. Holy smokes.
We got Skinner, we got Ferraro. They might be fans. And hey, no problem. If you guys want more, Vigo Bjork, if you want more advice, we're here for you. No problem.
I love the balls to ask for Zach Benson. Obviously, that was never, ever, ever going to happen when it comes to a Connor Hellebuck trade. But you go into a negotiation, you shoot for the ceiling, and maybe they say yes.
And the one interesting other one that I forgot to mention, of course, was apparently my Habs have been kicking tires a little bit here and there. Who knows if Connor Hellebuck would ever be interested in playing in Montreal? It's not the States. It's not going to, grow his brand as big. But it's a good team. It gets you close to winning, but yeah, that's always an interesting one.
So I will go with the idea. I see Vega Bondman says, does Connor really make New Jersey better, though? If he goes there, I think they don't win. I think it would be stupid. I also don't think the Devils have what it takes to get Connor Hellebuck. I think you're going to hear their name just to try and keep leveraging the other teams. If I were to guess today, I still do think Connor Hellebuck gets moved this summer. And I think it's a 3-horse race between Carolina, Utah, and Buffalo. I think Utah is really the team I keep coming back to when thinking about who could surprise here. Who could be the team? Everyone's been talking about Buffalo. Everyone's talking about Carolina. New Jersey's getting the hype. Who could be the team that comes out of nowhere and gets this done? And I will keep playing the poker table and keep playing what I think the owners at this table will ultimately end up doing. Buffalo had a real quiet free agency after the draft. They didn't really land the top 6 forwards they were looking at. They started talking about the idea that they're going to roll into next year with their young guys up front and try and take steps that way. That is interesting because they would still be in a position to do that and go fix the goaltending and make a splash. Utah, I think, is what's really interesting here. I can't shake the Utah thing. Ryan Smith and those NBA owners think differently. We know he's been wanting to make a big splash. And when Trocheck went there yesterday without any of Tij, Caleb Desnoyer, Simishev, or Daniel Boot in the deal, my alarm bell started going off a little bit because by bringing in Trocheck, they got their center. Now down the middle, they have Cooley, Schmaltz, Trocheck, McBain plays a bit of center for them. He'd probably shift to the wing now.
Yep.
And I was looking at a deal of Caleb Desnoyer, Barrett Hayden, and Vejmelka as being the framework, similar to what they were talking about with Buffalo. Now, the Devils smartly got in the way of that, doing the offer sheet on Barrett Hayden, $4.5 million, second round pick. And it's a real interesting offer sheet because if Utah were to accept it, they actually can't trade Barrett Hayden, and he would then walk to free agency next summer.
Right.
So it's like, do you want Hayden on your roster next year and then he's gone, or do you want that second round pick to then maneuver from there? I think I can't shake it. I think Caleb Desnoyer, Vejmelka will be featured in a Utah deal. Keller and Trocheck checks off 2 Team USA teammates now in Utah. They have the high-end young asset to do it. They have the roster pieces in their depth to do it. I keep coming back to Utah now. I think it's Utah or Buffalo. I think Terry Pagula or Ryan Smith get on and get involved in this and want to make that splash as an owner. Utah could look at this as putting themselves over the top. They've retooled the decor over the last couple of years. They have now got the center depth down pat. They got the young, exciting wingers like a Gunther scoring 40 goals already in this league. And then you still have the Tij Ginla, who I wouldn't expect in this. I think he's going to be their off-limits prospect. You have the Caleb Desnoyer, you have the Daniel Butt, and you have the Dmitry Simishev. I think it's between Buffalo and Utah, and I'm really curious which one of those owners blink. I think the Devils are just a name in theory in this.
Yep.
I don't think they can give the Jets what they really need to make this deal work. And Carolina could get there, but it would take them doing something I wouldn't expect Tulsky to do. So if Hellebuck were to leave this summer, I'm going to stick with Utah. I'm going to stick with Buffalo. I think it will ultimately have one of Noah Ostlund or one of Caleb Desnoyer type centers. I would rather Desnoyer. My ranks would be Hellenius, Desnoyer, Ostlund.
Yeah.
But I do think it's one of those teams. They have the young piece and the roster pieces to kind of make this maneuver in the fashion the Jets are using it to do. And they have the type of ownership groups I think would get giddy about being the guy to bring Connor Hellebuck down to the States. I think both of those guys are the teams to watch ultimately. Utah made their first move, but I don't think they're done. And Buffalo didn't really get anything outside of the buy room for number 4 done. My gut still tells me it's one of Utah or Buffalo leaving this.
Yeah. I wonder if there'd be any trepidation from Connor Hellebuck waving to go to Utah. I wonder if
Why?
I would just wonder if he views them as close to winning as Buffalo. I'm just curious to know if that would end up being a thing or not. But now that we've kind of moved past the draft and the options are limited, I think he'll probably end up accepting a trade almost to any of the big spots like that. So, yeah, it's Utah's a good one. They've got the assets. And you know what? In a previous time, I may have said, they're not going to be able to, he can't grow his brand in Utah. No, Utah's popping right now with, between all of the reality shows and everything going on. So, yep, that's a good dark horse to keep your eye on for sure.
And good ownership for that kind of thing as well.
Absolutely.
The other one Kyprios brought up, and again, I'd be a little surprised, but maybe this is a maneuver that tries to keep Dylan Larkin, is Kyprios keeps bringing up Detroit around this. And I wonder if that's something around a Marco Kasper up the middle and an Ethan Bear, or not an Ethan Bear, Carter Bear, sorry.
Carter, yeah.
Yeah, we don't know on Ethan Bear.
Wrong Bear.
Yeah, wrong Bear. Yeah, that's just kind of where I think this goes. I still would be surprised if Connor Hellebuck's a Jet in camp.
Yeah.
And if he is, we're probably looking at this happening next summer. It's hard to see the big goalie contracts move in season. So the next time we do a show, if Hellebuck is traded, will be the day Hellebuck is traded this summer. If not, you'll see us back in camp. So judging today, Connor Hellebuck in tow, if the Winnipeg Jets offseason ends like this, what would your prediction or projection of the Winnipeg Jets season be? Way too early, but called the shot last July 2nd. If the off season ends today, where do you think the Winnipeg Jets fall in the playoff mix? Where do you think they fall in the Central? Where do the Jets sit in the hierarchy of the NHL today?
And we're going off of the assumption Connor Hellebuck is still here. We're saying that deals are done, finished, and
as of today.
Yeah, roster built
today.
as it is right now.
As of today.
I'm going to say if this roster played out the season next year, incorporating whatever injuries and things like that would come into it, you're looking at, wild card number 1 team right there. That's WC1. That's they're going to sneak right in there, fight it right down to the very end, and probably end up sneaking in. You've got more than enough backup now with Skinner and Hellebuck. Your 6D, if those are going to be the 60 on the ice, majority of the games across, that's a pretty good decor. So yeah, I say they almost snuck in last year with that their big push at the end to try to make up for the horrid consistency up to that point. I'll say yeah, they sneak in. That's one of your 2 wild card teams.
So Affinity Comic goes second wild card, Cranberry goes wild card. If the season were to end, our old Jets fan goes 18th overall, 5th in the Central. If the season were to start today, I'm going to lean the opposite way. I think they just miss, and I'm on the same frame of mind as old Jets fan. I think they're somewhere. I don't have them in the top 4 of the Central.
No.
If we're looking at teams that fall out from last year, I think the LA Kings will be falling out, but I would take the San Jose Sharks to come up and get in there. For me, I think the Jets did a pretty good job of raising their floor and having the competitive depth. But at the end of the day, their big problem remains completely unsolved. This is a very flawed offensive team. We know Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele are at best an average first line, and we saw that they can't outscore their own problems and lead this team better. They're not going to get more juice offensively out of the bottom 9 as they did last year. Like, as set up, they can go trade Connor Hellebuck or still go answer some of the offensive stuff in free agency. As of July 2nd, I think they're a team that's on the fringe of the wild card race. Like, I don't think they're really out of it. This is a better team than last year when we were talking at this time and flirting with the idea they could finish bottom 10. But I do think this roster is still flawed to the level I would bet on them just missing and drafting like 12th or 13th overall right now, which would be just my nightmare scenario all around in such a draft.
Yep.
I still think they're on pace for what I've been hoping for. That I think they're still on pace to be talking about potentially trading Josh Norrisy at the deadline. I think they'll be competitive, but if they get off to a bad start, this is the type of roster that won't have it in them to go on the big streaks, to go on the big offensive runs to get there, that I think that will still hold them back. I think it's a competitive group. I think it's a better group than last year. But as of today, I would have them having a shot at the wild card, but I would personally have them just outside that line.
Now, the other part, too, is if Connor Hellebuck starts the season with the Winnipeg Jets, I don't think he's going to be starting it in a great mood. I don't think you're going to be getting prime, locked in, ready to go. I'm focused in on winning a cup and a Vezina Connor Hellebuck. You may get the, quiet quitting version of Connor Hellebuck that we saw towards the end of the season last year, which would absolutely put them in a position to have a really bad start and keep them out of the playoffs going forward. So, yeah, I think, again, the most likely scenario overall is that Connor Hellebuck is traded before camp happens. And that the return on that is going to tell us a lot on whether or not the Jets are going to be chasing down a wild card spot or if we're going to be dreaming about DuPont.
Kishore says over in the chat, competitive for a wild card doesn't get me too excited about the future. Here's where I'll try and sell this as a good thing for you, Kishore. When it comes to this summer, let's get into this. What would you grade this summer and your feelings about where the Jets are today compared to where they were on April, Mikey? Let's kind of get into this bigger picture here.
Ooh, where do I think they are today after this summer?
Compared to even April, I guess.
I guess looking at it, right, they've once again done the thing that they do best, and that's avoid any, crippling mistakes. They didn't hand out some absolutely terrible free agent contract. They're not hampered in by anything too long term. I know everybody's mad that free agents don't want to come here and we're on no trade list, but it also does protect us, right? You can make your biggest weakness your strength, and the fact that they aren't hampered down by anything that is just franchise crippling, right, is a positive. The fact that they came away from that draft with Vigo Bjork at 8, didn't have to trade down, didn't give up any extra assets to do so, right? That was an absolute win. That changes your trajectory. So like those are positive things. My issue still remains one that the same people who got us into the mess that we are currently in are the ones who are trying to get us out of it, right? I don't generally trust them to run a bath, never mind an NHL franchise. So that part is still an issue for me. I know you've got a little bit more faith when it comes to these type of trades and the rebuild on the fly. I still maintain that I'm not convinced that this is the best way to go about it. So I'm worried on that aspect of it, but I like what we have so far. If I was the team, right, and I was, my pure goal, number one, flat, straight out, have been said out loud multiple times, is just make the playoffs, then I would say you probably feel pretty good about the summer so far. You still have the Hellebuck trade piece if that relationship is soured. You did some decent work in free agency, and now you just have to end at the draft, and now you just have to go out there and use the Hellebuck trade to find your second winging scorer, and you're going to be taking it to the races with Skinner leading the way. So if I was that side of it, I'd think, hey, that's actually a pretty great summer so far. But again, I don't view this group as being the one to do it. I think they need to get to that next stage of maybe another down year, looking at next year's draft especially. So in that lens, I'll give them a passing grade because, again, the Bjork of it all, there's nothing hampering them going forward. I just don't think they've been proactive enough to get this started in time, because we're going to keep dragging out the length that the rebuild is going to take by these half measures. And I wish we were more proactive in that sense.
I think that's totally fair. So what would your letter grade be as today's comes at this point?
I'll give them a C because C's get degrees. But I'm not, but that's still pretty generous for me, to be honest.
Okay, I want to go to 2 points in the chat, and then I'll give my evaluation of the summer so far. I want to touch on this from Rob Mahoney saying, I have nothing against Ferraro, but every contender regenerates their roster by keeping key spots like third pairing open for developing players. Why do the Jets keep blocking their prospects? All I would say on that topic, as someone that would normally argue on that side of it, I don't see who he's blocking in this next 2 years.
No.
Going into his last contract. Like, the Jets don't have any prospects that are ready to take that kind of jump, which is part of why getting a player like that right now has been important. Is this farm system is in trouble. As much as people want to see youth, there is no real youth in Winnipeg to get fired up and say, hey, this guy needs to be playing. That's not where they're at this point of the time. That I have no issue with it, and I just wanted to present that.
Yeah.
I see Kishore also said this was an interesting way to look at this too, and I think it was a smart way when you're looking at the age of the core versus just making floor moves. Is Kishore points out they're slightly worse than April of last year purely because the core is another year past their prime. Good moves on the edges, though. So when I look at this summer, I say right now, I would say a C or a B minus would be my ranking on this summer at this point in time. They dodged the bullet that everyone was really pushing for in this market, and thank God that they didn't. They dodged the bullet of trading number 8 for a mid add onto the second line this year. So they won that scenario, in my opinion, by getting Vigo Bjork. That was a W. If they would have traded that pick or future picks, I would have been calling this an F summer, despite many people wanting it. They kept the pick. They kept their future picks. They didn't give things up into the future that would have really crippled my belief in where this can go. Happy with that. On the free agent market, they got 2 good bets at really quality contracts that raise the floor and give them some insulation to tinker around with their roster and discuss a Connor Hellebuck trade. I like the bet of Stuart Skinner. I just like the pieces of business that much better. They kept both contracts to 2 to 3 years. They're very tradable if this starts sliding back like I think it will. And they took quality bets in free agency at a time of year there typically isn't quality bets. So that for me is a passing grade. And ultimately, I think they achieved what they thought their goal was to put together a more competitive product than last year. I do think this is a better team than last year's season opener. Just when you look at the goaltending duo, this is probably the best goaltending duo in the NHL at this moment in time.
Yeah.
We're expecting a trade, but this is the pinnacle of goaltending duos, and I do think it's a top 10 to 15 range decor. The problem really being is the amount or the lack thereof offense on this group.
Yeah.
And for me, when I look at this, I would have liked more intention going backwards. Obviously, I've made that no secret. But I do think this is still set up where they didn't take away the options of rebuilding on the fly. They actually gave themselves some options that will play into that in a sense where maybe a Mario Ferraro is here as that stable piece beside a youngster in year 2 and 3 of where this is going. If not, maybe he's turned into a low first or a second round pick plus in the marketplace. So I like it from that angle. Stuart Skinner, we just saw what he got in that Yari trade. You know, there's some value there if he finds his upside again with teams looking for goalies. So I think they gave themselves the flexibility. I think they really walked the line between retool and rebuild in the way that they were hoping to achieve. So for their motivations, I think they did pretty well. I'll give it a C. Let's call it a C at this point. It's incomplete, but at this point in the offseason, for how I see asset building, team building, roster building, I think they've landed on a fair spot that puts them in range for what their goal is. But I also think what I want is ultimately still in the cards and that this thing still continues to go backwards. And they didn't handcuff themselves. Should it go that way? They actually got themselves some assets. Should it go that way? So I think the Connor Hellebuck deal will really determine whether this is a solidified playoff team or whether this is going to be a team drafting in the top 10. Right now, for me, I have them just outside the playoff line. I don't think they got there yet, but they put themselves in a range where if everything goes right, it wouldn't shock me if the Winnipeg Jets were the Western Conference number 2 team and they were getting waxed in 5 games in the first round. That is in play, and we know that's what they want. But I do think from a big picture, they got Bjork, which helps with the rebuild. I've said enough good on what I think Vigo can mean that he gives me faith that if this starts going backwards, you already have one of those pieces in house. You still do have your big trade piece and the other 3 to come in the coming years that I don't think they crippled themselves. I don't think they got themselves stuck into anything. And I think they come out of this summer genuinely just doing some good, smart business in the meantime with some big, big questions to come. So for me, it's a passing grade, but it's incomplete at this moment in time. It's incomplete. That's where I would arrive at.
Yeah, we need to see what happens with Hellebuck. And if you want to give the benefit of the doubt, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, who's prioritizing, it sounds like NHL type players right now, right? Young players, but still NHL players, right? Less so, it seems the priority was on pure picks and things like that. Post draft is when you're going to be able to do that a lot better. You're going to be looking at the actual players more so than draft picks and players who are just drafted, right? Those are going to be more so of the lottery tickets that it doesn't seem like they're interested in. So maybe you do get that higher quality player coming back, right? Maybe it is a Constant Hellenius, which absolutely changes your trajectory, both short-term and long-term. So like you said, it's incomplete. They could still hit a home run. You know, Yarmo could get that word down from the owners and drop a deal in Chevy's lap the way that he did last time that you can't refuse. And we could be looking at an absolute bombshell. So yeah, it's incomplete. But right now, it's the lack of pro-action for me that keeps it, from being any higher.
It feels like to me, I would bet on Colorado, Dallas, Mini, Vegas, Edmonton, Utah, Anaheim to be in the playoffs at this point in time. 7 of last year's 8 teams. And I would probably take out of the LA, St. Louis, Nashville, San Jose, Winnipeg, Seattle mix. I expect those teams to be bunched up again next year. I would take the San Jose Sharks from that mix. And from that point on, basically for where I think the Jets need to go to actually turn this ship around over time is I think they really need a slow start. I think they need a slow start to really come to Jesus here. But I do think they've put themselves in a position to at least be competitive, and it's going to be whether they show it or not here.
Yep, 100% agree.
So, anything else you wanted to talk about on the way out here?
No, that's pretty much it. Outside of the fact that Argentina's going to go on and win the World Cup again this year, back-to-back champs. So can't wait for that to happen in 2 weeks.
So let's talk. There's a couple of different places people want to go, so let's keep chatting here for a little bit.
Let's do it.
Cole Billis says, do you buy the Drager comment on Vigo being a winger? I would hate that. If you need a 2C to develop him, and then you don't have to worry about that anymore, don't make him another winger. Did you read into Darren Drager's comment much from this week on Vigo Bjork?
So again, we've talked a lot about Drager and his connection and all of that, and it's coming from the team. And most of the time I'm like, yeah, that's absolutely the case. This is one of those times I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping we don't get another Cole Perfetti situation where they're like, yeah, we'll try this out for a period, and then, okay, you're a winger forever now. That would be absolutely criminal. The part that I'm struggling with is it wouldn't surprise me to hear that the coaching staff and development staff don't view any player under a certain height as a center potential and move everybody to the wing, because it wouldn't shock me. So that does make me worry. But right now it's so early. We haven't gone through rookie camp. We haven't done we haven't done any of the big things that are going to have to go through before we start looking at exactly where in the lineup he's going to be. So I'm really hoping this is more so just smoke screeny. We need something to talk about in the middle of summer. And not actually indicative of where he's going to be in the lineup, because, yeah, that would be such a miss.
I'm not too worried about it. I'm not reading into any of it. As you heard the last episode, in Vigo Bjork, I trust. He started the SHL as a winger. It did not slow him down. It did not change his trajectory. I am not worried about it, because the other key part of it, if we're believing Darren Drager on this, is Darren Drager had him as an NHLer in that scenario.
Yep.
And if he's playing NHL games and it's to start at the wing, I don't think this is a bad thing. Like, the thing with Vigo Bjork, as I really emphasized last show, it is not where this starts. It is where this ends for this player. And I don't think we need to overreact by him playing NHL games in different parts of the lineup, getting his feet wet. It didn't matter for him as a 17-year-old in the SHL. As an 18-year-old, it's going to be okay. I know the Jets have done silly stuff in the past. This is different. Vigo's different. I'm going to continue to bet on the player that I've watched. That could be their plan this year, to get his feet wet. At the end of the day, I'm not too worried about it.
Also, it could be a thing where, Vigo's going to be the new kid coming in now, right? So it's like when a new kid starts at school and you need somebody to beat up the bully that's been beating you up. So if, Scotty is nice to Vigo, maybe Vigo can beat up Scheifele for him, and then he can get the locker room back. So, maybe Vigo will get to play center.
Maybe. And we'll see what happens. I'm just not concerned at this point. Kishore also points out we should also chat about how the other teams in the division changed. For Kishore, comment moved. Hold on a second. For Kishore, it was Dallas, Colorado, and St. Louis are currently worse. Many about the same. Utah better. How do you think the teams in the Central all fared this summer? Because it was an interesting one in the Central. And I'm not too far off on what Kishore thought either, actually.
Yeah, the tough thing is, so the Central was fairly beefy to begin with, right? That was a really tough division throughout all of last season. So comparatively, yeah, it looks like some of the, maybe a few of the teams above us did a little bit worse this year, don't look as good, but they're still a fairly good team, still probably better than what the Winnipeg Jets are going to be able to put out there in terms of consistent night in, night out winning games. So yeah, you can make the argument for a few of them not having the best summer that you would have hoped for if you're that organization and you've got such an arms race within, but I still think they've they haven't put themselves in a position anywhere close to or near where the Jets likely are competing with them consistently. I think the Jets are still by far the bottom of that group there for the most part.
So Colorado got worse. I agree with that. Dallas so far has gotten worse, though if they would have got Werenski done, we're probably having a way different
story.
Dallas conversation. Yep. I think the Wild took a step forward with the Calgary deal today. They really fixed that center hole, not to the level they were hoping, but I do think Blake Coleman's still a quality player in what they're trying to achieve there. Utah, I think, is going to be better, and I'm not even sure that they're done yet, as I kind of talked about with the Hellebuck thing. So of the top four from last year in the Central, I do think Colorado and Dallas took a step backwards, but Minnesota and Utah took a step forward. That side of the division might be a little tighter next year. St. Louis, I really like their setup, but it does seem like they're more long-term focused with it. That I'm curious to see what that looks like next year. Nashville had kind of a summer like Winnipeg did, where I don't love the direction they went with it. Like I view Nashville the same way I view Winnipeg right now, where I think they should be really starting to look at a new era and not trying to push a mediocre mid-team into the playoffs. They made a lot of forward adds that were interesting and definitely raised their floor, but I don't think it impacted the Nashville ceiling. I think they're in a similar spot as Winnipeg, where they're probably marginally better than they were last year, like the Jets are, but I don't think it's made them a true contender. And then Chicago got better by getting Byram. Like we talked about the asset side of it, but I think Byram does make them a better team next year. I just don't think they're even anywhere in this playoff mix at this point. I think the four teams in the Central I would bet on to be playoff teams are Colorado, Dallas, Mini, and Utah. And teams like St. Louis, Nashville, Winnipeg are probably chasing the additional wildcard spot, is what I think kind of leaving this week.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree with that.
Bailey asks, what do you guys think of the Capitals as a dark horse for a heli landing spot? With Logan Thompson, I would be very surprised by them being a dark horse for Hellebuck. I think they're pretty locked in, plus the salary component. The Washington Capitals had a huge focus on deepening out their forward group, and I think they accomplished that this year with Tuck, with Kyrou, and now Ovi's back for another year. I would be a little surprised by Washington, but hey, never say never. I just think with Logan Thompson there, I wouldn't expect that one, especially for how good he's been for them the last couple of years.
Completely agree. I think they're pretty happy with their goaltending there, and it just doesn't seem like the right fit for me.
I like this take from 204 Raw. Arneal won't be the coach when Bjork is a regular in the NHL. That was one of my takes coming into next year, actually, is I don't think Scott Arneal lasts the whole year next year, based on where I think this ultimately goes next year.
I was hoping for that last year.
I think that's a good take from Raw. I think we're entering the last year of Scott Arneal in Winnipeg, and I do ultimately bet that Bjork plays in the SH. So I like that take from Raw. I'm in on that one.
That would be that'd be nice. That would be a positive. It's going to be very dependent on a slow start out of the gate next year for the Jets, because if they have any type of success early on where it looks like they're competing for a playoff spot, you can guarantee he'll at least get to the end of that current contract. So let's he's
only got 1 year left on it.
Yes, exactly. He's got 1 year left. He's lame duck this season. That's what I mean. If they get any type of decent start, they won't let him be a lame duck, right? They'll sign him. So that's what I mean. This is going to be it's make or break for the Jets. So, fingers crossed on that one, I guess. Where's Mike Commodore? Is he still golfing with the boys?
Yeah, probably. I want to learn more about that.
Yeah, me too.
Blake G says, how old will Vigo be when the Jets make the playoffs next? 24, 25. I just don't see them being anything better than a wildcard 2, with the West and the Central only getting better. Really depends on how the next 12 to 18 months go with their asset pool and turning it into a future asset pool. Hard to project right now when all four guys are still in Winnipeg and they haven't made one of the big trades yet to see what that kind of could look like. I'm not going to go out on a limb quite yet on that one.
No, it's it's real tough. Maybe they sneak in at some point, but in terms of like winning a playoff round, that's gonna be a long time from now, and it still is gonna require some radical change.
For sure, I'm with you there. Anything else on the way out here? As Kishore says, I'm feeling positivity about Bjork, the returns on Heli trade, and potentially trading Iafallo or Nino or Vladdy for assets. Those are the same areas where I'm really looking for some positivity and some new direction into the future. The Jets do have a lot of forwards, and they've lost some Moose D depth. I do wonder if at some point we do see them parlay one of those forwards into some more defensive depth throughout the organization. Maybe it comes with a pick sort of thing, and just get off the contract. I am wondering about those names specifically. And we were talking about the idea of bringing in a Tolvanen, a Laine, or a Mantha. I would want to see a move like that come with trading off one of those guys for additional future assets as a bit of a trade-off, because there is a bit of a logjam when it comes to waiver eligible and how many forwards are actually signed already for next year. It is hard for the Winnipeg Jets to bring in a forward without removing a forward from the lineup right now. So those are some of the angles we're looking for. Kishore also mentions also ready for Boumediene to take a step at the college level. Really curious to see how his year goes.
Yeah.
Obviously, his relationship with Vigo has been quite interesting. And there's another kid that is going with the whole Sidney Crosby thing I brought up. I was watching some of the development camp video, and one of Boumediene's reactions was, "We just got the Swedish Crosby," and all excited.
Love
so you're
that.
not only hearing it from me, you're hearing it from someone that grew up with him, that he plays that way.
Yep.
And Colin Hall goes to where I'm thinking something might happen too. Colin Hall says, "I'm anticipating something like Chibrikov and a small plus for a D. Chibrikov's waiver eligible going into next year. Wouldn't surprise me if you see a bit of a movement there. Those type of deals could happen in camp even. I don't think that's a big pressing thing this summer. I think the only piece of business the Jets will really be focused on the rest of this summer, other than organizational depth two-way signings, is a Connor Hellebuyck trade and potentially signing one of those forwards that we talked about."
Yep. Totally agree.
With that being said, this will be our last episode until training camp, barring the big move. If Connor Hellebuyck gets traded, we will be back that day to discuss it with all y'all. And on the way out of this show, I just wanted to kind of say some personal things to the audience about the show and what it's kind of meant to have all of you on board this year. As the regulars know, and we've had a lot of new people coming in, so very much appreciate the growth and the positivity and the growing excitement around this show. The last 2 years of my life doing the show were extremely difficult, between losing my dad, who was a big supporter of me doing this, and then going through cancer and only missing, 4 or 5 shows while battling cancer. And I want to just really thank everyone, from our sponsors, the Fromm family, right from day one when when I told Ozzy I really wanted to chase something like this and do something like this. Him and his family were on board right away. I can't thank them enough. Fantastic people. Make sure to check out their social media, or even give Ozzy a call to work alongside with them. Great family. Couldn't be more thankful to have them on board. As for this community, as much as you guys and gals have really hyped us up and given us really good feedback and kept us going and really, really helped build us up along this process of building up this community, having this community and having people to talk to while I was going through the roughest 2 years of my life was really huge. I don't know if I'd be here mentally and physically in quite the way that I am now without all of you that have gone behind this and really been here nightly, really reached out to me to check in, really wanted more and more of this content. I absolutely love doing this. I have a real passion for doing this, and to see this community grow and see a group of people really get behind this and enjoy it too has honestly been one of the biggest honors of my lifetime, and we hope to keep it moving with more and more content moving forward. So we appreciate you. We appreciate you believing in this, telling your friends and family, continuing to show up so that we can do this. I want to thank you because you really did help me get through the hardest 2-year stretch of my life. That being said as well, as we continue to build and want to continue bringing you more and more content, I'll put this out there. If you are somewhere in Winnipeg or the Manitoba market that owns a business, we will be looking to add a couple more sponsors in the future. We want to keep the content the way it is, we would be looking at doing segments like we did with the From Financial Face-Off and all that. So if you have interest in at least discussing something like that, feel free to shoot us an email at toplinemedia@gmail.com, and we can link up and discuss something like that. We'll throw that out there. And Mikey, we're doing a little bit more merch. You want to show, as you heard on the last episode, quite excited for Vigo Mania, and we're going to lean into it here. So I showed it off on social media. We're going to go into the Vigo Mania merch tour. So if you're interested in joining Vigo Mania with the boys, we're going to do a big order on some tank tops for the summer, leaning into the old Hulk Hogan theme around Vigo. So feel free to either DM me on social media or email us at toplinemedia@gmail.com. I'm going to put the order in a week from now, so you have a week to reach out. We're going to do a bulk order, $25 for a sleeveless cutoff for the summer representing Vigo Mania. If that's something you're into, I would just like to see the community get fired up about something. And if you're into the Vigo stuff like I am, we're putting something out there if Mikey wants to show it off on the show.
Yep, we'll pull it up
but
here.
At the end of the day, I just want to say thank you for being here and really diving into all this and making this happen. We enjoy it, and we'll definitely be back next year, if not sooner, with the Connor Hellebuck thing.
So here she is, everybody. What you gonna do when Vigo Mania runs wild over you? So send Nick a DM if that looks good, everybody. It's gonna be great. The other part too is, like Nick said, if you like what we do here, right? Easy way to support us. Click that subscribe button on YouTube. It's absolutely free. You can find us on all of your podcast apps. Give us a 5-star rating on there if you can. It lets us be seen by more and more people. Lets us keep growing the show and bringing you, different things every week. And can't wait till we get back. And just remember, everybody, you can continue to be surprised, or you can listen to the landing strip.
As Mr. Meow says, tank tops, from tanking for Vigo to Vigo tank tops, we're all in. We said if you believed in the tank that there was a chance for some goodies at the end of it. We got the one that I was looking for. There is some brighter days on the horizon. We'll see where this continues to go, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you for being here. I hope you all have a wonderful summer, and we'll talk to you when we talk to you. You take it easy.
Right on. Good night, everybody.